Welcome to TXOGA Talks, where energy meets insight. The purpose of this podcast is to provide you with a candid conversation about our energy needs, our energy security, and your energy future. Texas oil and natural gas have made our nation the world's energy leader, constantly innovating and investing to fuel the economy, protect the environment, and power the world. This industry is fast-paced, high-tech, and essential to improving modern life. And we're here to talk about it. You're listening to TXOGA Talks, where energy meets insight. And welcome back to another edition of TXOGA Talks. I'm so delighted today to have with us the Texas Land Commissioner, Dawn Buckingham. Commissioner, it's great to be with you.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Todd.
Absolutely. We appreciate the work that you're doing. You're here in Houston Rodeo attire tonight. How about that? It's the biggest of them all.
That's right. We had the Stampede from the Houston Rodeo come and deliver all our credentials to the Capitol, and we're excited about rodeo season in Texas across the board.
Well, Houston Rodeo makes a difference in a lot of lives. They raise money for scholarships. Kids win resources that they're able to reinvest. It really defines who we are as Texans, and I'm so glad to see you leading and helping support the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo.
Well, it's easy and fun, and all of our kids with an interest in ag, we need to support them every way we can, and that's one of the things we do in the General Land Office as well, which is lots of fun.
Well, and we're excited to talk to you about that. Now, you are what number of land commissioners in Texas are you?
I think we decided I'm 29. Yeah,
the best, obviously, the best ever that we've had. We're so glad that you're here with us today. A lot of Texans may not know, but I think the General Land Office is it the oldest state agency that we have?
It is. We are the last remaining governmental entity of the Republic of Texas. We predate the governor by about 9 years.
Wow.
So we take very seriously our job. And since you opened that up, I'm just going to give you a quick second, but you didn't ask about it. But so, as Texas was transitioning from a sovereign nation to a state, which is unique because everywhere else was pretty much a territory, we had to figure out who owned what because of all the flags we had lived under. So the General Land Office was founded as the keepers of maps, the guardians of Texas history, and the steward to what today is 13 million acres, makes us the largest mineral owner in the state on behalf of the school children of Texas. And just in my short term of 2 years, we've given almost $3.5 billion to the school kids of Texas. And so I know we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but we're doing all kinds of fun stuff.
Well, that's exciting. 13 million acres. That's probably bigger than some states in this union. And it's kind of nice to be our own country again, is what I'm thinking.
My family is an old Texas family, 9 generations. Ironically, one of the first cases the General Land Office settled was against my family in favor of some guy named Austin, even though we were there first. Somehow lost that paper from Spain that gave us our land grant, but that's all right. We'll revisit that case from 1836 here pretty quick.
9 generations. That's amazing. There are not many 9-generation Texans. You're one of a unique crowd, I think.
Yeah, and we were also the British consulate to the Republic of Texas, so we take this stuff pretty seriously.
Isn't that something? I didn't know this till as a few years ago now, but Texas actually had an office in England and in France right when we were a republic. And the story I heard, we didn't have any money, but we wanted the United States to have to negotiate with us and give us pretty good terms. And so they opened offices in London and in Paris. And I actually found the one Jan and I did when we were visiting in Paris. We found where that location was.
Yeah, I've seen that too. It's pretty fun. I wasn't in Paris long, but I was in Paris long enough to see the Texas office in Paris.
Isn't that great? Well, Texas really does have a big impact on our state. You come uniquely qualified to serve in this position, being a 9th-generation Texas, but you served in the Texas State Senate before that. How many terms did you end up serving in our state Senate?
It was 2 terms, and then redistricting threw in a little half, so 6 years total. But loved being in the Texas Senate, represented Bandera to Temple to Abilene, 20,000 square miles of the heart of Texas, actually bigger than 8 states in geographic area and 9 other states in population. So it was a big job then, and I loved being in the Senate, but I love being land commissioner even more.
Well, we're certainly glad you're there. We're glad that Texans elected you there. And was that 2022, I guess, was the election for GLO? Is that right? Okay, good. And before that, you were a little bit of a busy person. Tell you. I've gotten some medical advice from you on some issues, and you were nice enough to take my call. Tell us about that part of your life.
Sure. I was a practicing oculoplastic and reconstructive surgeon, which is an ophthalmologist, eye surgeon with a subspecialty in tumors around the eye, tear drainage problems, eyelid malpositions. Practiced for about 25 years right here in Austin, which is probably part of what put me on this path. And I sort of became the eye doctor to the Capitol. So,
you did.
Yeah. And, I went to high school at Westlake and I went to UT. So we've been around Austin a little bit. We tend to know a lot of people in a lot of different rooms.
Well, you had some people with mixed emotions when you were running for commissioner of the land office because you were their physician and they miss you in that role, but we're certainly glad you're in this one. Now, the General Land Office, being our oldest state agency, I didn't even realize it predated us as a state and went back that far. That's pretty amazing. But if you think about it, Texas' value was in land back then, right? Isn't that was our real asset, that what we had, and that asset is carried forward today. You not only manage those lands, you not only manage those mineral acres, and I kind of want to walk through that, but you have some work on our great coast of Texas as well. So walk us through the coastal responsibilities of the Land Commission.
Yeah, so the General Land Office, well, we'll get to the coast in a second, but we, of course, run the Alamo. We might talk about that in a little bit.
That's even better, yes.
We run several of the veterans programs for the state. We run our mortgage program, which we're the only state that has a mortgage program.
And it's a mortgage program for veterans. Okay.
For veterans, separate from the feds, but can be combined with it. We also have 10 nursing homes across the state and 5 veterans cemeteries. We do all the big disaster recovery, the HUD, the later disaster recovery, fire, floods, hurricanes. We're embarking on the largest infrastructure project that the Army Corps of Engineers has ever done in the Coastal Spine Project, and that gets to our coast. And, of course, recovering from the largest disaster, the Hurricane Harvey, that our country's ever experienced. But on the coast, we clean up oil spills. We do habitat restoration. We rebuild rookeries. We do so many things, re-nourish beaches on the coast. So it's a lot of fun. We do a lot of different things all across the state.
Well, as Texas, we're proud of our coast. Having the opportunity to export oil and natural gas to allies all over the world really does separate us as a state from many others. And we're very fortunate to have that coastline now in the Gulf of America.
I know, the Gulf of America.
How about that?
Stay tuned. There might be a map coming out from the General Land Office since we are the official mapping entity for the state.
If you haven't been to the General Land Office, folks, you probably ought to make it a point and go see. They've got some great artifacts dating back to the Republic of Texas. And so when you come to Austin, you visit the state capitol, you visit the State History Museum, be sure and go by the General Land Office.
Yeah, we're literally right next door to the Bullock Museum. We have the oldest map archive in the state. We actually have maps from the 1500s. And if your family is an old Texas family, any land grants, we've got copies of those land grants. We've got copies of the original plats of pretty much all the counties, all the cities, all the cool stuff. So come see us.
I'm sure mine family's got lost somewhere. I'm sure it's in there in the archives. We can't find it. I don't know where it's at.
We'll help you find it.
That'd be good. Now, since we're talking about historical things, you mentioned the Alamo, one of the amazing assets that we have as a state. Tell us the role of the land commissioner and the Alamo, and tell us about that connection.
We basically own it on behalf of Texas. Of course, we partner with the Alamo Trust to run it. We have a $550 million project happening there. And what we are...
How much? Say that one more time.
$550 million project.
Folks, it's over $500 million. We rushed through those numbers today. They get so big. What are you going to do with almost over $500 million?
Well, really what we're doing is making a visit to the Alamo worthy of the significance of the events of what happened there for the first time since the battle. So you backtrack a little bit. As Texans, when we travel, we say we're Texans.
Right.
Doesn't matter what country we're in. We don't say we're Americans. It doesn't matter where we are in the world. That answer back is always remember the Alamo, because the Alamo has become that shining star, that example of giving up everything, fighting against tyranny for your beliefs, for your family, for your fledgling country, and getting the job done. And so, yet when we would visit, you'd stand on that busy corner, busy street, Russian vibrations, look at the lovely wax museum, and your friends that you bought with you to see the Shrine of Liberty said, "Is that it?" Yeah. And the average stay was about 7 minutes and went to do something else. Well, now We opened up a collection center. Phil Collins, the famous British singer, had a special collection to the Alamo, bequeathed us with his massive collection, but said you've got to build a collection center to display it. So that opened about a year and a half ago. It's amazing. And then we're building an education center for the first time so that our kids have a dedicated space, early childhood curriculum, all the way through high school, so that they can immerse and learn our history. And when I say our history, I'm talking our line in the sand, liberty or death, history.
Yep.
And then we're building a 100,000 square foot museum where the Wax Museum used to be. It's of course battle centric, but it does set the battle in the context of time from the early Native Americans all the way through how the Alamo continues to be a big part of pop culture now. And in the middle of that theater is this amazing, or in the middle of that museum is an amazing 4D theater. So you're going to sit in that chair behind a defender. Your seat is going to shake when those cannonballs hit. You're going to smell the gunpowder and the smoke. You're going to see all the action, hear all the action. It's going to immerse you in the story of the battle. And then we have some challenges with the Alamo itself. Of course, the church. We call it was the church and the fort, but we've got some structural integrity issues. We've got a roof that's exceeded its lifespan, so we need to get that roof off. We need to get a roof on that's going to protect it and do everything we can to be sure that that building is standing in 500 years.
You are bringing back and making alive the very foundation and formation of this great state, the Republic of Texas, the state that is leading our great nation today, our state that's producing 44% almost of our crude oil production for the nation, about 30% of our entire natural gas production in the United States is from the Lone Star State. And all that's possible because of what those defenders did at the Alamo and our forefathers and how they cared for it. I'm so glad you guys are such good caretakers and carrying that history, making it alive for each new generation.
It ties hand in hand, and the same for protecting oil and gas and our energy independence. If it weren't for oil and gas, we wouldn't have the resources to take care of the state, to educate our children, and do so many things that we do.
And let's talk a little bit about the role of the Land Commission in oil and gas and what you manage, because the Permanent School Fund, right? Tell us a little bit about that and the resources and how that all comes together.
The Permanent School Fund is the oldest and largest sovereign wealth fund for education in our entire country, $57 billion.
Folks, think about what Commissioner Buckingham just said. The oldest and largest. That's bigger than Harvard's education fund right here, our Permanent School Fund. And how is the Permanent School Fund funded?
Well, it's off our state land. So most of it, of course, is oil and gas. Also, we do agricultural leases and little things like that. But without oil and gas, we wouldn't have that fund. So to put it in perspective, I've written $3.5 billion worth of checks to the Permanent School Fund in my first 2 years in office.
$3.5 billion. Our Energy and Impact Economic Report that we just released for 2024 reflected that $1.5 billion was made available from royalties that are paid to the state of Texas. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, and I don't have to tell you, and of course all your watchers here, but that's on top of all the property taxes that oil and gas pays and all the other taxes that oil and gas pays that support the state. So we are very clear. We unapologetically protect the industry, and we look for transformational ways to do that, to be a part of solving some of the issues. Produced water is an issue with reinjection. We want to get it to agricultural levels for the same cost as reinjection. I think we're almost there. Pretty soon we're going to be turning West Texas into a garden oasis. I tell everybody, get ready. We defend on the Endangered Species Acts. In fact, if I need to get in a fight to defend oil and gas and I need to buy a piece of property to do it, I do it because we want to be in that fight. We want to be leading the charge because I can swing a bigger stick than your average mineral owner can swing, and I can say things other people can. So we just unapologetically get in there. We also did it when the Biden administration tried to shut down the liquefied natural gas exports. We turned around and sued them on that. We are leading the world in carbon sequestration, trying to meet those metrics with some of the stuff that'll let people operate into the, past 2030 with all the restrictions. We did a 1.2 million acre lease in carbon sequestration. That's core. I bought a 350,000 acre ranch for a lot of reasons. One, we want to be really sure China didn't buy it, and that was an issue. Two, with that kind of surface, we can do soil carbon, which I think is even a better deal than core carbon. So we're just leading on all these fronts, but all of it is really geared at protecting oil and gas because it's so important to not just the state, but our country.
And Texas school kids benefit from that lease for carbon storage on 1.2 million acres. That's an amazing benefit. You don't have to live in the middle of an oil patch to benefit from oil and natural gas in Texas. It doesn't matter your zip code, where you live, you get to reap the benefits. And you'll be getting royalty payments. And you probably already have some advance royalties, I would suspect.
Yeah, we generated $130 million in one day with our lease sale.
Pretty good payday.
And we anticipate it'll be worth about $10 billion in the next 10 years.
That's $10 billion. That's a lot of revenue. That's bigger than the annual tax budgets of many states, kind of what oil and gas produces in Texas. It's amazing. Now, when you think about the boundaries of Texas, we're big, but the boundaries of Texas go beyond our soil, and it goes out into the Gulf, right? How far out does the state boundary line go?
Because we're a sovereign nation, we go 3 marine leagues, which is roughly 10.3 miles. Most of the coastal states go a couple miles. So as usual, we're bigger and better in Texas.
And we get to benefit all the resources that are out in that 10-mile zone is attributable to Texas, and that's exciting stuff right there. Permanent school fund, the oil and gas funds, the rainy day fund, our state's economic stabilization fund, state highway fund, just our permanent university fund received $1.9 billion at the same time the permanent school fund got $1.5 billion. So it's a lot of revenues benefiting a lot of people.
It is. I chair the board for lease for the Permanent University Fund lands, and what they generate out of their 2.1 million acres of minerals is really impressive, and I love working with them as well. Although I do tease with UT getting 2/3 and A&M getting 1/3. I know you're an Aggie. I'm a Longhorn, but I'm like, I think A&M picked first. Yeah, no, I'm teasing. I'm just teasing. That's not how it went.
Fans love to tell me that and it hurts to this day. But it's a good thing that it's benefiting everyone. As a land-grant university, Texas A&M happens to be our oldest university, and we're proud to have served and we graduate more people than our armed services schools and to serve in our military, and that's an exciting combination and contribution.
A&M is amazing.
Yeah. We're fortunate in Texas to have a lot of good universities that are making a big impact, no doubt. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're listening with Dawn Buckingham, our state's General Land Commissioner that's with us today. We're going through some of the duties that she undertakes during her daily work, and we'll be right back after a message from our sponsor. Thanks to a partnership between TXOGA and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, now more than ever, it's easy for small businesses to provide affordable group health coverage for their employees through the TXOGA Healthcare Plan. With a TXOGA plan, members can choose the right healthcare plan and benefits for them priced within their budget with the physicians and providers they trust. TXOGA's healthcare plan is available to small businesses with between 2 and 50 total employees who are headquartered in Texas, members of TXOGA, and aligned to the Texas oil and natural gas industry. If your organization is not enrolled but looking for coverage, visit bcbstx.com/TXOGA. I'll say that again. Visit bcbstx.com/TXOGA to learn more. Visit today. Welcome back to TXOGA Talks, where we're visiting with Texas Land Commissioner Dawn Buckingham. Commissioner, we've talked a lot about your duties that you undertake and your team at the GLO. You guys do a fantastic job. We talked a little bit about what we do for veterans. I just think it's pretty cool that we have a state that honors the men and women who serve our great nation in uniform. You have veterans hospitals, there's nursing homes. I don't think all states have the opportunity to do what we do for our veterans.
I'm very clear on the fact that we're the land of the free because of the brave. And so we really love taking care of our veterans. We have 10 nursing homes across the state. Now, the 10th one's about to open up in Fort Worth. It's the Tuskegee home. It opens up in March. Good. We're really excited about that. We just did a 5-year anniversary of our Houston home this past week and had a lovely celebration there. They're really unique places because most of the employees have a background in the military. They have special training in post-traumatic stress.
So they get it firsthand on their colleagues and who they're serving.
They really get it, and it's really a calling to them and a special mission. And then, of course, we have our veterans cemeteries across the state. We have 5. The newest one's about to open up in Lubbock. Our next place, what we're trying to do now, is get one in East Texas, because there is not a veterans cemetery in the state east of Interstate 35.
I did not realize that. Well, we certainly do. We've got a lot of veterans. We have our veterans that served in World War II, where my father-in-law and 4 brothers were serving at the same time. And so I know we have a lot of history there in East Texas in service. And East Texas was the very beginnings of the state of Texas, right? And the colonies, and my old Senate district, Nacogdoches and Lufkin and Shelby County and those areas. So that would be very welcomed, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're really excited about that opportunity and working through that. And then Texas is the only state that has a mortgage program for our veterans.
So let's talk about that. If you're a veteran from the state of Texas, you're eligible for financial assistance for purchasing land and other properties through, and that's coordinated through the General Land Office.
It is. Boy, do I have a deal for our veterans out there. So you can buy a home, you can renovate a home, or you can buy property. One of the things we did is we've raised what people can borrow, because, of course, houses are not getting any cheaper in the state. Right. And we want our veterans to be able to get in there and use our loans for the house they want. It can be combined with the federal program, so you can get to a no down payment situation. And if you have spouses, a couple that are both veterans, they can combine their benefit and get one mortgage. So we've done a lot of things since we started. And a huge shout out, of course, Tony Dale, former state representative, heads up our veterans division, and he's doing an amazing job.
That's wonderful. Yes, I remember working with Representative Dale, and so glad you have him. He's a veteran himself, and he understands it full well. You've got a great team that you've assembled. Real proud of your work that you're doing. And from an oil and gas perspective that is so intertwined with the history and heritage of this state, and that creates so many opportunities. We know that you take your role as a steward of the mineral resources very seriously, but you're also a fierce defender of all things Texans. And I know that when we're concerned about our border security, and having legal access rather than illegal access to our country through Texas, that you've worked with President Trump and his administration, and you've stepped up and made some land available. And tell us a little bit about that aspect.
Well, it's fun not only being the first woman land commissioner, but it's also very fun being the first person to make Texas bigger in a couple hundred years. So right out of the gate, I got an ask from the Department of Public Safety, and they said, hey, Dawn, there's these islands in the Rio Grande. Because they hadn't been claimed by Texas or Mexico, they were literally law enforcement free zones, military free zones. And the cartels literally fought over them every night because they were safe havens. The first one was about 5 to 10 acres. The second one was about 30 to 40 acres. The third one was 170 acres. Wow. They had built structures on there. There were IEDs, there were weapons, there were drugs. There were, of course, your, as you would expect, unfortunately, abused women and children. But we declared them. It took me about 48 hours. I said, well, we are the mapping entity for the state. Where's the center of the river? We determine that all day long. So we determined that, and I said, okay, lawyers, please double check our treaty with Mexico from 1836. Anything north of the center of the waterway is Texas, i.e. the United States. So we claimed it. Operation Flat Top, we got in with the Border Patrol, the Texas Military Department, DPS. We cleared those islands. We got the wire up, and we have complete operational control. And then the Texas Facilities Commission, of course, they're the entity that's been building the wall in the state. And these last 4 years, when Biden's been abdicating his duty to uphold our Constitution and protect our border, and they came to me and they said, boy, Dawn, we've got this problematic landowner. Now, as a rural girl myself, I don't love eminent domain. And they said, look, we don't want to get in a big fight, but you won't allow law enforcement on the property. Once you won't allow law enforcement on the property, the bad guys know that's a free pass. And the second they know it's a free pass, it became, of course, the highest crime statistic. It's where some of the original rape trees were found. And so we made her a fair market value for her property. She sold it to us within 24 hours. We had the right of the way for the wall done. That wall is basically completed in construction. We have a few gates to put in, a few lights, but the wall's functionally up, complete operational control. But I did jump in a big bulldozer and bulldoze some trees just as a symbol that we are not going to tolerate our women and our children being abused in the way they have been abused. We are going to get these violent criminals off of our soil. And that's where we thought to reach out to the Trump administration and say, hey, you've got a good partner in us. You just let us know what you need. If we've got something that fits that need, we're happy to help.
That's awesome. Not only managing our state's land, protecting and defending our state's lands as well. Dawn Buckingham, General Land Commissioner. That's fantastic news. As we wrap up here today, Commissioner, I appreciate you being with us so very much. But I want to just walk through, did we miss anything about some of your activities on protecting oil and natural gas in a manner that enables this industry continue to be the partner with all Texans that we are? I want to say thank you for intervening on the LNG export ban of former President Biden. We were engaged in that very heavily. We had companies in Texas whose business plans were on hold. We had allies across the globe who are depending on Texas in the United States. I tell people, buyers from across the world are literally lining up at the doorstep of Texas, needing our resources to develop their countries and to have the basic needs that we so often take for granted. And so thank you for doing that. Tell us about some of those activities a little bit more.
All kinds of things, from things you wouldn't even think about. The ports operate through patent leases from us. And so we do a lot on our submerged lands to help oil and gas. Actually, the Coastal Spine Project, keeping the Houston Ship Channel up and running should a big storm come up. The ship channel is another way. Being honest about some of the issues. We've got a lot of abandoned wells up and down our coast, roughly 50 in Trinity Bay. They were becoming an issue, and honestly, something that was used against oil and gas. So we rattled our couch cushions and came up with $10 million so that the Railroad Commission can hopefully get those wells plugged. And then once the Railroad Commission gets unplugged, then I can remove that structure and take that talking point away. We were being pretty crafty in some of our leases around the sagebrush lizard. And then the EPA got craftier, so we just reared up and sued them, and we'll pick that fight all day long, as we have on all of their other Endangered Species Act. And then, of course, we talked earlier about the produced water. I am most excited about that. Yeah. I do believe that water is one of our biggest challenges as a state moving forward, being able to get that water to agricultural levels. When you look at our droughts, there are actually 6 tributaries in the state that Texas gets to keep all of the water that goes in there. The other tributaries that go into the Rio Grande, Mexico gets 30% of that water. Mexico hasn't been giving us our water. I'm not giving them any of mine. So we want to get that water in those right tributaries. We're working on growing crops right now on state lands, proving that water is just fine. And I think we're going to get it to agricultural levels at the price of reinjection. And we're literally going to have millions of barrels a day of fresh water, which is, oil and gas is important, but water is probably an even more valuable resource heading into the future. Yeah, water is phenomenal. And I'm glad the legislature's really focused on that this session. Our industry's been focused on that for quite some time. These pilot programs that you're talking about will prove the efficacy of management of that produced water for surface and water discharge, and it'll be a big boon. It certainly will be, and we're glad for that partnership because it'll make a difference. I'm amazed at the oil and gas industry. They are honest about their own problems in the industry, and they always come up with solutions. They really are some of the brightest engineers in the world. That's what attracted me to the Texas Oil and Gas Association, is that we have different teams of men and women actually who are making this work day in and day out. I've never seen a problem or a challenge that they couldn't rise up to. And I was looking at some statistics the other day, and just 10 years ago, we had about 1,500 wells producing about 9.2 million barrels a day. Today, we have less than 600 rigs that are producing we're producing about 13.4 million barrels a day. So the progress that has been made through innovation and technology, research and development is just fantastic. And using good methods to have safe, reliable energy that the world needs, and that is really defining Texas and defining America. If you look at all the artificial intelligence and the data centers, these are tremendous opportunities for jobs, for futures, for new generation of Texans. And I'm glad that we're going to be able to lead the way, and having reliable and affordable energy and available energy is certainly the cornerstone of that. Absolutely. One other way we're fighting that you wouldn't necessarily think of, but sitting on the Permanent School Fund Corporation board, when you're investing $57 million, you swing a big stick in the financial markets, and all these ESG policies and all these activist proxy voting companies that were using the fact that they controlled the majority of the proxies in our country to do hostile takeovers of the board and drive these ESG policies and actively hurt oil and gas by their lack of investment. We threw down and said, we're not doing it that way. We're going to be Texas-centric. We're going to be sure our proxies are voted like we want it to vote. We are very clear what built the Permanent School Fund. And I think we were part of, you see the shift now of the corporations, even before Trump got elected. But you see this shift, all of a sudden, it was hurting their wallet. And all of a sudden, they started changing all their DEI and ESG policies. And I think we were a big part of that. So we just look at every front, at where the threats are, and we just take them head on.
Well, you certainly are a great leader for Texas. You're making a difference in millions of lives. We're better because of your work and that of Dawn Buckingham, ladies and gentlemen. We really appreciate you being with us today. And we've got to get you back on here and get some footage of all the things that's going on at the Alamo. That's a treasure, folks. You need to take your kids and take your family and take your folks from out of state, bring them down there and show them what Texas is all about.
Yep. I say if you haven't been, come now and then come back in a couple of years when we finish, because it's amazing what we're doing down there. And we're happy to run you through, and we can give all your viewers an up-close and personal VIP tour via your podcast.
I think it's a grand idea, and we'll certainly want to take you up on that.
That's good.
Well, thanks again for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to another episode of TXOGA Talks, where energy meets insight.
The views expressed on this podcast are not intended and should not be construed to be the views of any particular TXOGA member or company. The purpose of this podcast is to engage in candid conversations about energy needs, energy security, and the future of energy.